Oh, hi. Welcome to Game Life. You know what, Chris Baker? I think we've been agreeing on things a little bit too much lately. Don't you agree?
What are you talking about? No.
Exactly. I think that we should have a fight. I think that we should have a good old-fashioned fight. We should talk about some controversial video games that we disagree on. What do you think?
I think that's a terrible idea.
Great.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Awesome. All right, Baker. First game we're going to talk about, Mirror's Edge. It's on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. It's a first-person parkour game. You reviewed it for us, so you know it well. You're running and you're jumping, and it's this great, exhilarating feeling of jumping across buildings and grabbing onto pipes and doing all these crazy, stupid things trying to outrun the law. I really actually liked Mirror's Edge. Got a little bit repetitive for me, but I love how the game actually works. But you had some issues with it, right?
Yeah, just the fundamental experience of running around doing first-person parkour is totally fun. But there's a lot of combat breaking that up. There are a lot of guys who have guns pointed at you. You don't have a gun, and it doesn't really have a very good system to fight back at them, and you die a lot. And there are some fantastic levels just out in the open air where you're jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Those are incredibly exhilarating. But there are also a lot of levels where you're just in these cramped, closed quarters, not quite sure how to get to the next place, and just circling around, looking for a way out, looking for a way to advance. So the developer DICE has created this whole new genre of games with this really striking aesthetic. But I'd be happy to play another game in this genre. But the way the levels are laid out, the way the challenges and combat works, it's very frustrating. I died over and over and over and over again.
See, here's the thing. There's frustrating games, but then there's games that are way too easy. And I mean, Mirror's Edge, yes, you do die over and over and over again, but it's one of those things where every time you die, it kind of pulls you back a little bit, and so it makes you master that little stretch of level that you're doing. Yeah, there's some trial and error going on, but when you finally do it, when you finally pull off this great big string of moves outside, not in one of the little confined levels, but outside, you really feel great about yourself. You actually mastered something. You very specifically, the reason why you die and die and die is because you're not nailing the move precisely right. And as soon as you get that, when you start getting that feeling, that's when Mirror's Edge really shines.
Sometimes it is just a matter of really honing your technique. Sometimes I think it's a matter of the way the levels are laid out, the way it's not clear where you're supposed to go next and what you're supposed to do. So this is a really divisive game. Some people just absolutely love it. Some people think the frustrations really outweigh the positives.
For me, I'll take a little bit of frustration. I'll take a couple of elements in a game where I'm kind of ticked off at the game because it at least engages my emotions. A lot of games that I've sworn at, or said really, really mean things to while I've been playing them. Those are the games that have engaged me the most. Yeah, some games are just BS, but in Mirror's Edge's case, I think it has enough payoff to kind of reward the player for getting a little bit frustrated sometimes. I am going to agree with you though on the combat. It really just didn't need to be there. I felt like they've got this they had a good 4 or 5 hour Portal game with their good mechanics that they just kind of had to stretch out and make more difficult for the player, and they added combat and it didn't really work.
One of the selling points was you were supposedly, you could get through this game without killing any of these people shooting at you. You could just disarm them or clobber them and keep on running.
Yeah, right.
And about halfway through, I wanted them all to die. I wanted to be able to shoot at the developers of this game for putting me through so much torment. So I stopped trying to get through without killing people.
Yeah,
I killed everyone I saw.
I just started killing every single one of them. There's a big achievement, right? I think if you don't kill anybody, it's this 100-point achievement or something like that.
I'll never know.
It's something, yeah. Nope. And honestly, I'm never even going to finish the game, quite frankly, because it got to the point where it was just getting a little bit repetitive.
The ending is so hard. I can't wait to play the expansion pack. I can't wait to play the sequel. But there are some real problems with this game. So Prince of Persia is this venerable old franchise that has you clambering around inside, sultans' palaces and underground tunnels, and there's
Spikes, lots of spikes.
lots of spikes.
Yeah.
Requires lots of acrobatic maneuvers, and the games were famous for having a mechanic that let you literally rewind what was happening in the game, just like you would on a remote control on a DVD. If you died, you just back up a few seconds before you died, and you tried again.
Which a lot of people said would have been really good for Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Now, this new game took a different tack. It's impossible to die in this game, but what you have is a magical partner who pulls your fat out of the fire every time you're about to die.
So let me just say, you know, for the record, before I get into criticizing Prince of Persia, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing, per se, to have a game where you cannot die. I just sort of want to get that on the table, that in Prince of Persia, you cannot die. If as soon as you fall off a cliff, you are immediately brought back to that cliff. Like, you're never more than like 2 or 3 seconds away from where you died with 0 penalty whatsoever. There's no penalty. Now again, Braid, there's a game where you couldn't die, but it was about the puzzles, you know? Prince of Persia, to me, felt like I had a game genie turned on. It felt like I was cheating. Like, that's what playing this game felt like to me.
I think, you know, just the core gameplay, you know, clambering up parapets and then sliding down using your gauntlet to slow your descent is just incredibly fun. And you know, I was still a little put out when I died, even though I did sort of get revived immediately. It was, you know, I was disappointed in myself. I didn't so much mind. And I feel
I'm
like,
disappointed in you too, because I think you're on crack with this gameplay is fun thing. I mean, all you're doing in Prince of Persia, yeah, you're running on the columns and jumping on the parapets and stuff like that, but it's all canned. It's all done for you. Like in Mirror's Edge, you've really got to make sure to nail every single jump. But in Prince of Persia, you just go up, you hit the jump button, and you hit the other buttons, and it just does everything for you. All you do is you just enter in a little string of button combinations. It's like playing Dragon's Lair. And once I realized that it wasn't fun anymore, because I realized I wasn't doing anything. The game was just playing itself for me, and I was just sort of like helping it along.
I guess it is fairly forgiving. There's a very large window, you know, maybe a half second in which you can push a button and get to the next point. But you know, you're not just jumping across. You are chaining together move after move after move after move. And I think the sequences of chains are longer than in previous games. And frankly, you can get to the end of one of those and die, and I think it does back you up a good 20 or 30 seconds. I mean, you know, you don't always respawn
in some
immediately.
cases, there's a long kind of chain of stuff, and it backs you up all the way to the beginning of it, but they're really not that long. And the other thing is the difficulty of this game does not scale. Like, every level is only as difficult as the previous level. And I mean, the challenges just don't ramp up in difficulty at all. So I mean, once you get it, once you know what buttons to press and when, because all the timing is always just the same. Like, every time you run on a wall, you run on a wall for the exact same amount of time. And once you understand that, it takes like 2 or 3 levels before you get it. The next 20 levels of the game are just the same thing over and over. Now again, love the graphics, love the music, like the story, like the characters, you know, all that stuff is just top-notch. The technology, I mean, the whole world, right? Just all interconnected. It's great. But I feel like they really lost it with the gameplay. And I went back and I played the old Sands of Time, the first time Rewind game. And it's still a lot of fun. You just got more direct control. The game's not just sort of, you know, dragging you by the nose.
You're high. I like all the games in this franchise, but I think all 3 of the previous ones had certain points where it just became really difficult and frustrating. I mean, maybe they erred too much on the side of, you know, hand-holding, making it easy for you. And I have to say, I'm maybe halfway through at this point, so maybe it will get kind of grinding and repetitive. But
Yeah.
but so far it feels like Prince of Persia with, you know, some of the annoyances sanded off. Maybe I'll, you know, Mule will kick me in the head and I'll come around to your way of thinking after.
Again, I've got to say, after Mirror's Edge and then Prince of Persia, I'm starting to come around to like annoying games. Like I feel like you've got to have some frustration, you've got to have some annoyance in the game if you're going to have like highs, if you're going to have joy, like there's Prince of Persia gets rid of all the lows. There are no lows. It's an easy game. You can just blast right through it. It's never frustrating ever. But it also, for me, just had no highs. It was just this sort of flat experience all the way through. And if Mirror's Edge, was sort of like this when I was really frustrated and then really happy, I'd rather have this.
If I'm playing a game with you, that's frustration and annoyance enough for me. I don't mind if it's a little more easy.
Thanks, Baker.